Welcome, everybody, to episode 9 of the Slow Smoke Pigskin podcast. And guess what? We got upgraded. See, I got these things on my head. And over there, I got a microphone. And you know why? You know why we got these things? Because Drew's gambling addiction paid off, and he won lots of money on the Super Bowl square.
You're welcome.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
And then I finally got around to decorating behind me. Look at that beautiful trophy. It looks like it's floating.
It does.
Isn't that awesome?
That's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. I'm curious what you're going to put there next year, though.
It's staying right there for a very long time.
I don't know.
We'll Either see. That or a giant bottle of whiskey for me to drown my sorrows for the trophy being gone.
Or the toilet bowl. Maybe.
Yeah, Janelle was joking. If Janelle wins the toilet bowl, do I have to put another that shelf over there right now doesn't have anything on it? I could maybe fit it up there.
Save it.
All right. So let's talk some NFL news. Hey, there was a big game that happened last weekend. Chiefs Super Bowl champions. Congratulations. I didn't want to see it again, but I also didn't want to see the 49ers win. So the first half of the game was not bad, and at least it got interesting at the end. Some drama. And, Mahomes got another MVP, even though I didn't feel like he did anything super duper special, but
the biggest problem was that no one did anything. The MVP of the game was Bucker.
Yeah,
he scored the most points, and probably should have been the MVP. But you're going to give it when no one really performs very well. You're going to give it to the quarterback and it's Mahomes. So
Kelsey ended up with 9 catches for 93 and no touchdowns, but that was after not a whole lot in the first half. I think Mecole Hardman was the second leading receiver with 3 for 56 and a touchdown where he blacked out. That's the only reason he caught the damn ball, probably. Oh, speaking of, did you hear or on Hard Knocks they had Oz the Mentalist or whatever before the season, and he was talking to Mecole Hardman, and Mecole Hardman said, "Oh, I'm going to be in the Super Bowl against the 49ers." And it turns out it was true. It just happened that he was not on the same team anymore.
Yeah.
So, McCaffrey had a big game, 130 some yards, but that costly fumble.
Yeah.
A lot of plays that if they had gone the other way. Also, the Chiefs recovered 6 of 7 fumbles in the game. That's going to make it hard to win when you're the 49ers. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest of Super Bowls, but I'm not going to complain with the amount of money that I won off of it. But, it was, I feel like it entertained enough. Halftime show was a little nostalgic, but wasn't super engaged in it.
Hey, it was the number 1 watched television event of all time now. So
yeah, well, I'm going to credit that to the person I don't want to talk about for the next 6 months.
Fair enough. All right. Anything else on the Super Bowl? Move
on. I do want to point out that the Chiefs have not been called for a holding penalty in 3 Super Bowls.
Which is crazy because I think this season they led the league or top 3 in holds during the regular season. So they just cleaned up their act for the Super Bowl?
That's definitely a possibility, except for the fact that we've seen a few videos of a few tackles / holds, whatever you want to call it. It's a hard thing to call. Everybody holds probably every single play. But it's just funny that they haven't been called for a single holding penalty.
Is what it is. Back to back. New dynasty.
Yep.
Great.
Do they go back to back to back? Prediction now.
No. I'm going to say no.
Nah, it's too hard to do.
I mean, it's hard enough to win 2. Winning 3. They've got to find a way to re-sign Chris Jones. They need to get another receiver. I know they managed this year. Kelsey's going to be another year older. when you're talking about picking one or picking the field, I'm going to pick the field most of the time. So
Of course.
all right. Also, before the Super Bowl, we had the NFL honors. So, with 49 out of 50 first place votes, Lamar Jackson won his second MVP. It was expected after I think pretty much since the Ravens beat the 49ers in the regular season, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that it was going to be Lamar. The ironic part is actually, if you look at his stats for the season, they weren't that great, but the team won and he was important. And
I think he ended up as the seventh ranked quarterback of the season when
in
all of
fantasy points,
in fantasy points. Like I think, don't quote me on the exact number, but he was definitely not the one, two, or three. Which
uh,
is, but the team did well, and so when your team does well, you get more votes.
is what it is. I mean, I
Yo,
didn't see anyone else really doing it because MVP tends to be a quarterback award, and then
yeah,
offensive player of the year usually goes to a skill position, which,
hmm
oh, guess what? Offensive
it
player of the
did.
year was Christian McCaffrey. Like, there was no doubt that was the
No,
case. I mean, honestly, everyone knows that McCaffrey's been like a big productive player. He's always good, but he actually led the league this year in rushing. And normally he's had so much more production with receiving work that
yeah,
was actually surprising.
yeah, and he still had plenty of receiving work and still uh led the league in rushing. So
Yeah.
that's definitely that's deserved right there.
Yep. So for the second year in a row, we have offensive and defensive rookie of the year coming from the same team. Last year it was the Jets. This year we've got CJ Stroud and Will Anderson from the Texans winning rookies of the year. I think they were picked 2 and 3, if I remember correctly. They traded up to get Will Anderson, and that paid off. So, I mean, and not to mention, D'Amico Ryan's looking like a good coach, and Texans are going to be an interesting team. They got a lot of young pieces, and they've got a bunch of cap space. So we'll see
Right.
what they do in the offseason.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see who they pick up in the offseason, but that's definitely a team that is going to be around for a while.
Yep. Defensive player of the year, Miles Garrett. I mean, it's hard to argue with him. He is a scary man on the field. But there was a lot of big players, but that one seems to work. And then comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco. After coming off the couch and leading the Browns, putting up better stats than anyone else on the team. And he broke a lot of people's hearts because Damar Hamlin was long favorable odds to win the award because he died last
He,
year.
he broke his heart.
Yeah, yeah, there you
Good
go.
job,
He
Aaron.
literally, I like it.
Yeah.
But apparently coming back off the couch to play for the Browns is worse than coming back from death. So
Way harder to come off the couch than to come back from being intubated and chest compressions.
yeah, there you
That's
go.
a piece of cake.
Um, the Jets owner started to go off on his team a little bit, very unhappy with how the season went. He said he would have done so much, the team could have been so much better if they had a backup quarterback. Oh, wait. Didn't they have Zach Wilson?
They
Apparently
did.
not even a backup quarterback. So easy to say he's probably not going to be on the team next year.
He won't be a backup, that's for sure. Backup the backup, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's gonna have to go somewhere else to even get a chance, and I don't even know if that'll work.
Yeah, probably not.
And then last piece of news: Jason Kelsey is just an American treasure. Can we
My
just
hero.
all be thankful for this guy? I mean, yeah, cheers to Jason.
Hmm
Absolutely. Like, first of all, the sheer fact that he was wearing some bright red and yellow overalls to the game. And then somehow, apparently, at the first after party after the Super Bowl to celebrate his brother's win, he found a random luchador mask on the floor and decided to put it on. And then that just led to the rest of the partying.
Yeah.
Like, he is just a treasure. And I heard it suggested that he do a Anthony Bourdain style show where he goes from city to city and attends the tailgates and see how it goes. And all I can tell you is I would watch the hell out of that show.
100%. And I would try to be at those many tailgates as possible if I had the opportunity to.
No doubt. All right.
I would like to hang out with that guy for
No
sure.
doubt. All right. So the main topic for this week is the coaching carousel. Now that the Super Bowl's ended, all the coaches have got into place for next season. We wanted to talk a little bit about what changes happened and how that's going to affect the team's offense, defense, etc. So, I mean, there was a lot of changes this year. You figure we're looking at head coach. We're only looking at head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator. So 3 per team, 32 teams, that's 96. I believe there was almost 50 of them changed.
Yeah.
At the end, I didn't exactly count, but it was definitely more than a third and close to, if not over half.
Close to like it was in the 50-ish percentage like realm.
Yeah.
Like there was, I don't know the exact number, but yes, there was flip-flopping going on. But yeah, I mean it's super important to have some knowledge on this. Like this is probably my weakest point as a fantasy manager, knowing who's doing what. But if you look at it and you see that coach's style of play, it can definitely persuade who they draft, who they how they get their quarterbacks ready, how they develop their players and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and I mean, and just how they run the offense or defense. I
right.
mean, if we're talking it from a fantasy aspect, so for the most part, we're looking at what it means for the offense, and certain coaches lean toward higher flying games and more points, and therefore more fantasy points. Some of them want to run the ball and play high testosterone football, play defense, and win in low scoring games. So it definitely impacts what can happen.
Absolutely. So let's get started. So this episode we're going to do the AFC. So we'll start with the AFC East and the Bills. The head coach Sean McDermott, same. Offensive coordinator is Joe Brady, and the defensive coordinator is Bobby Babick.
I'm gonna go with Babbage.
Babich. I don't know.
So Sean McDermott, he's been there a couple years. People talking about him maybe being on the hot seat because they haven't gone far in the playoffs, keep losing to the Chiefs. Joe Brady was the interim OC towards the end of the season after they fired Ken Dorsey. He took over, and once he took over, you saw them go to James Cook a lot more. There was a lot more running happening, and Stephon Diggs went from superstar to straight disappeared. So we'll see what it means with him and a whole offseason to implement his offense that might have been different than Dorsey's, but we definitely saw a lot more running and less of the high flying that we had come to know from the Bills in the past. So
Yeah,
and then the DC, he was from the internal system. So, and if I remember correctly, McDermott's a defensive coach, so he's probably running that a lot. So I don't think that'll change their game plan too much.
Yeah, the defense will probably stay pretty similar to what it had. I think Josh Allen was a little bit more comfortable as the season went on, so I think you'll see that could progress into beating the Chiefs. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
We'll see.
All right, Dolphins. Mike McDaniel, same. Offensive coordinator Frank Smith is the same. They changed their defensive coordinator. He ended up in Philly, I believe, and they got Anthony Weaver, previously the Ravens associate head coach and defensive line coach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think their defense, the change in DC is going to change a whole lot in terms of how that team operates. Mike McDaniel is a offensive mastermind. They're still going to be fast. They're still going to be high flying. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the running backs there because I don't even know if I think Raheem Mostert still has 1 year left on his contract.
He's got one more year, yeah.
But Devon will, he was explosive. He had, I think it was like 7.8 yards per carry, which is an absolutely ridiculous number. but that's on limited touches, and I think he's 5'9", 180. I don't think he can stand up to a full workload. But in terms of coaching, not much changing that's going to affect how the Dolphins offense looks.
No, but the one thing I like about McDaniel is he does adapt to kind of what's going on, not necessarily always for the good, as we saw throughout the league, the year. But with, Mostert, maybe they're going to split more time this year. Like Mostert can't take the brunt of it. He's too old. Achan can't really take the load because he's too little. So you can do this like 60-40, running back thing that the league is doing these days, and they could be successful.
Yeah, well, and they might run with a third. Savon
Yeah.
Ahmed had some production. Jeff Wilson, I don't think he's under contract anymore, but they like their running backs, so we shall
Yeah.
see.
Yep. Moving on to the Jets. The Jets didn't change a thing, which is kind of ironic, but I mean, consistency is key as well. Robert Saleh,
Sala.
Sala, I like to call it Saleh, whatever. He's going to be on the hot seat, obviously. It depends. Aaron Rodgers coming back, all those things. Offensive coordinator still Nathaniel Hackett. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett has his little man love affair with Aaron Rodgers, so I don't think Nathaniel Hackett's been super effective with an offense that doesn't involve Rodgers. I think the only reason all these people still have their job is that Rodgers got hurt, so they
Hmm.
didn't get to see what they were hoping to see. So next year will be interesting. I mean, Brees Hall going to be completely healthy. Garrett Wilson, if Aaron Rodgers comes back and can play anywhere close to his MVP seasons, that offense will be explosive. And Brees Hall is just a beast. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers can definitely make or break a team. I think just his mind alone, whether he can still throw the ball as far as he can, or run out of the pocket, he'll figure out a way to win. All right, so moving on to the Patriots, who basically had a complete
They
yard
cleaned
sale,
house.
and we're just gonna go with who we decided to go with. Jared Mayo is the new head coach. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. Um, Defensive coordinator Demarcus Covington.
Yeah, so Gerard Mayo was on the staff before. He played for the Patriots. I remember him as a player. But he's a defensive, he's a defender, so he's going to be a defensive minded head coach. He's most likely going to leave the offense to be run by the OC. The new OC, Alex Van Pelt, he was previously from the Browns. Um, you know, when he was at the Browns, they had Stefanski, who is also more of the offensive mastermind. So, but from what I've read about Alex Van Pelt, he's about establishing the run and then going play action off of it, which is going to be real interesting because I don't know. You don't even know who's going to be their quarterback next year. There's so many question marks. If they do start to be a team that establishes the run and then goes to play action, Ramondre Stevenson could be an absolute beast. Zeke isn't under contract, so who knows who their second or third running backs will be. Um, but yeah, that whole team is going to be a question mark. Right now they're projected to get Jaden Daniels as the third pick of the draft is what's being mocked right now. Well, they have the third pick right now. It's being mocked that they take Jaden Daniels. Um, he's a weapon from LSU, I think.
Yes.
Anyways, we'll talk about that in another episode. But either way, this team's gonna have to look so different next year. It's really hard to say. Me personally, I want to stay away from as many Patriots as I can right now. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. It's too much of an unknown right now for the team. Like, who's the quarterback? What's going to happen? Is it going to be how many building? It's going to be it's obviously going to be a rebuilding season. But can they be fantasy productive is the biggest question because that's really all that we care about. Okay, so moving on to the North, AFC North. We'll go with the champion Ravens. Head coach didn't change. John Harbaugh. offensive coordinator Todd Monken, and the new defensive coordinator Zach Orr.
Yeah, Todd Monken came in last year with the new offense. I think their offense was more productive than it had been. They still ran a lot more, which actually surprised me a bit, but they got to figure something out at wide receiver. They paid OBJ way too much money. He's not the answer.
Didn't even use him at all.
Nah, he barely got used.
Ridiculous.
Zay Flowers looks like a good rookie as long as he gets to play with his pending domestic
Yeah.
suit happening. Who knows? Rashad Bateman's been a disappointment, but there's also been claims that he's been hurt his whole career. So it'll be interesting. That being said, they got if Mark Andrews comes back healthy, and then Isaiah Likely, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle because that guy looks real good. So maybe they start running more 12 personnel, and you see the Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez combination, hopefully without the murder.
Clearly, without the murder. Yes.
All right, Browns.
But the Browns. But just was one thing with, and the free agency is for a different podcast within a couple of weeks. But rumor has it that maybe Derrick Henry's going to the Ravens.
Yeah, I've heard Ravens or Cowboys or a couple of spots.
Yeah, just
We'll
saying
see.
it could change the dynamic a little bit. But anyways,
Yep.
on to the Browns. Head coach Kevin Stefanski, offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. Let you talk about that, and the defensive coordinator stays the same with Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, I mean, how could you change defensive coordinators with how good their defense was this year?
Yeah.
But just to point out, Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year this year. With all the quarterback drama, with losing Nick Chubb, they still ended up 11-6. Bummer that they got knocked out early in the playoffs. But he's a good coach. So their new OC is Ken Dorsey, who was previously the Bills offensive coordinator, who got fired in the middle of the season. Early in the season, the Bills were very pass heavy, so that could be more exciting for their offense. We'll see. But I've lost all faith in trusting Ken Dorsey after he was quoted talking about his new quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and saying he's just a quality human being.
Define quality.
I mean, low quality, I guess, is still a quality.
There may have been an adjective in there that he forgot to use.
It's like when I say I'm in shape. Round is a shape.
It's still a shape.
Exactly.
All right. That's just ridiculous.
Let's go to Janelle's team. By the way, I just have to point out, I did not, when I was setting up this room earlier, I put up my Dodgers gnome and a Cowboys gnome. All of a sudden, I came in here and there was a random Steelers gnome up there that she snuck on me. I'll leave it there because I love my wife, but not cool.
That's a very poetic way of putting it. Good job.
Yeah.
You've learned from previous podcasts.
Yeah.
Steelers, Mike Tomlin will be there again. Offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. Defensive coordinator is still the same at Terrell Austin.
Okay, so real quick on Mike Tomlin. Somebody pointed out to me that Brandon Ayuk looks like Mike Tomlin with long hair. Go look at a picture, and you're never going to see the two of them again the same way.
I will have to look.
All right, so Arthur Smith. Okay. He was a horrible, horrible head coach at the Falcons, right? He just destroyed that team in ways that he shouldn't have. That being said, a couple years ago, the Titans were a beast offense with Derrick, but was that just because Derrick Henry? So Arthur Smith loves to run the ball. But is that a good thing for both Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren? Now, Najee Harris can play that, he's a bigger back, play that bruiser role that Arthur Smith used to run for Derrick Henry, and then Jaylen Warren can come in and be more explosive. But I mean, look at what Smith did with Algier and Bijan this year, and it was just frustrating. And then on top of that, they released Mitch Trubisky the other day, so now there's going to be a quarterback competition between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett. So the Steelers might pass like 14 times all next season. I think we're looking at total of
For the season.
yeah, for this season. So we'll see how that
Yeah,
goes.
I mean, the run heavy fits the Steelers. That's kind of what they've always done. So yeah, that's the only part that makes sense in this whole thing. So um good luck, Janelle.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. Bengals. Head coach is still Zach Taylor, offensive coordinator. They promoted Dan Pitcher, and defensive coordinator is still Lou Anarumo.
Hey, not bad. Anarumo, good job.
Yeah, I get it right every
Yeah.
once in a while.
So the thing is their OC moved on to be the Titans head coach, which I guess we'll talk about in a second. But
Yes.
Zach Taylor is the play caller for that offense, anyways. So I don't expect a whole lot to change in that offense. The bigger change in that offense is going to be what they do with personnel, because it's going to be interesting to see if T. Higgins sticks around. Free agency coming up, that'll be a big one. At first I heard they're going to let him walk, but then I heard that they might franchise tag him. We'll see. They just signed Joe Burrow to a big contract. They're gonna have to pay Jamar Chase soon. Joe Mixon reworked his deal to free up some room, but yeah, even if T Higgins leaves, I still don't see drastic changes in that offense.
No.
But um, yeah, they lost their OC. He went on to become a head coach, so we move on.
I'm not sure where they are in the draft this year, but the thing with the draft is, and with wide receiver free agency, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but um, it there's so many wide receivers that if they wanted if they wanted to let one walk, like it's not that big of a deal because the draft is full of them right now. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, that's for another time.
Yep. All right, AFC South.
Let's start with the Texans. No changes there, which is no brainer because they did so well.
That one was actually a surprise because a lot of people thought Bobby Sloak was going to get a head coaching job. So the fact that he's
Okay.
sticking around is actually real good for the Texans offense. CJ Stroud gets to stay in the same system. Nico Collins comes back. Tank Dell, if he comes back healthy, they're going to have to do something at running back because I don't think that Damian Pierce is the future. But other than that, at least the coaching staff is the same. That bodes very well for them.
Yeah. And I think running backs are going to get paid this year, so we'll see what happens there.
I think they're going to get paid better than last year.
Yeah.
But I still don't think they're getting. I mean, they're definitely not going to get wide receiver money.
No, they never will. And that's
yes.
just because of the workload that they have to do. And if they don't have the workload, they're sharing time with somebody, so they have to pay two. Anyways.
Yeah, but we got the college running back class is weak, so these
correct
free agent running backs may get better offers than they did before.
Right, and it's gonna be a fun offseason. I'm gonna tell you that.
Yeah,
Jaguars, Doug Peterson with a D and an O. Offensive coordinator, Press Taylor. New defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen.
So you mean he's not your uncle? Based on the spelling difference.
That's a story for another time.
Okay.
My name hasn't always been spelled this way, but it is now, and that's just going back many, many years.
You've never told me this before. I'll have to do this later.
Right.
Anyways, for the Jaguars, nothing's changing on the offensive side, so they are going to have some changes in terms of personnel. Calvin Ridley's probably gone, maybe, but we'll see. Yeah, but no coaching changes.
No. Hopefully their defense gets better because then they might actually be more consistent.
We'll see.
Colts, no changes there. Shane Steichen. I said that on purpose. Offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter.
Just the greatest name in football.
Favorite name in football right now. And defensive coordinator Gus Bradley. So that team's just going to be solid again.
Yeah, no changes there. The difference for them is going to be Anthony Richardson hopefully being healthy. So
yes. Another yard sale with the Titans. Head coach Brian Callahan. Offensive coordinator Nick Foles, and the defensive coordinator Denard Wilson.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, Brian Callahan was the Bengals OC, but he wasn't the play caller. So this is going to be interesting that he's going to take over as play caller and head coach, because he did come out saying that he plans to call offensive plays. Nick Holtz was the Jags passing game coordinator, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there with a rookie head coach who also hasn't called plays. Who knows who they're, well, I guess they'll probably go with Levis at their quarterback.
I hope so.
Don't know who they're going to have. Maybe Tajay Spears is their running back, depending on if they pick up somebody else.
Yeah.
D Hop is probably back as a receiver, but they didn't have a whole lot of, like, the Titans look to be to have a potentially rough year. So we'll see.
So Brian Callahan, he's done well with quarterbacks in the past, so that might be. And he learned under the tutelage of a coach that called the offensive plays, so maybe he's ready for it. But obviously, the only thing that we have to look for is the season and what happens. And obviously, I think their defense is still going to stay strong, which is what's going to carry them. But anyways,
Yep.
okay, on to the West. The Chiefs, Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, and Steve Spagnuolo,
Yeah.
who I think did sign an extension yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, Spagnuolo signed an extension, so he's not going anywhere. I don't think Matt Nagy's going anywhere.
Gonna stay the same.
Honestly,
They're going for the three-peat.
yeah, I thought Andy Reid might retire after winning two, but I don't think he's going anywhere. So they're going to have a, huh?
Isn't that what Travis Kelce told him? Like, you can't retire when he was yelling in his face.
Oh yeah,
Or I can't, I can't have my temper tantrums. That's the payoff.
Probably. All right, Raiders.
The Raiders. Head coach. We all knew that was going to happen. At least we all knew that should happen.
I hoped.
It should have happened, and it did. So congratulations, Antonio Pierce, offensive coordinator. There's a little carousel going on there. Luke Getsy and defensive coordinator Patrick Graham.
Yeah, so after they thought they were going to sign Cliff Kingsbury, and then Kingsbury just dropped out at the last moment, they went and got Luke Getsy, who was the Bears OC, because the Bears offense has been so good recently. This is the guy who took like 2 years and could not figure out how to effectively use Justin Fields. Like, this hiring doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Luke Getsy has not created offenses that looked worth a damn. So
they hit the panic button.
Yeah, I like Antonio Pierce. I'm not excited about Luke Getsy, and then you don't even know who their quarterback's going to be. So we'll see what happens.
Right? Maybe they trade for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Broncos.
Actually, no, that's the problem. They won't. Actually, the funny part about that is, like, the Raiders had been a spot that people talked about Fields going, but once Getsy went there, it was like, no, Fields ain't going there no more.
No, he's not going to accept that trade. On to the Broncos, no changes. Sean Payton, head coach, Joe Lombardi, offensive coordinator, and Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator.
Yeah, so nothing's changing the coaching staff, but they're getting a new quarterback. So
yes.
So offensive philosophy is not going to change, but that offense is probably going to be a bit different.
Yes. The last yard sale of the AFC, the Chargers landing the one and only Jim Harbaugh. His OC is going to be Greg Norman, and Roman. Sorry,
Greg Norman's a golfer.
You're right. I was betting on golf earlier, so that's why it's stuck in my head. Defensive coordinator Jesse Minter.
Yeah, so Harbaugh lands in LA. He brought his defensive coordinator from Michigan along with him, and then went and got Greg Roman, who was the Ravens OC for a bunch of years. So Greg Roman was known for being a run-heavy guy. Jim Harbaugh is known for being a run-heavy coach. I think the Chargers are going to be a run-heavy team, except there's one problem. They've got nobody to run. So this is going to be real interesting when it comes to free agency and the draft to see what they do, because they could draft some weapons, but they also need an offensive line really badly.
Yes.
So
Does
Harbaugh, I
Eckler
don't think
does Eckler stay?
I don't know. Because the problem is, like, I heard an interview with Eckler the other day, and Eckler said he was open to staying, and Harbaugh had made some comments about he'd love to have Eckler stay there as well. But the problem is that Eckler is not a pound the rock kind of running back. He's
No.
not that big. He is a dynamic pass catcher. So they have both sides have said they're open to it, but I don't know that Eckler's a fit there. So
Yeah, he can't be like a one quarterback or one running back. Like he's got to have to rotate because he's just going to get injured by week 8, and then it's going to be week to week, and he's not going to be as productive like he was this last year. He's old.
and like I said, they both of those coaches are run heavy, but they've got a lot of money into wide receivers right now. Like I don't even know how they're going to manage to keep Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They've got Justin Herbert, who's a great quarterback, but if you can't put any weapons around him, I just don't know what they're planning to do there. So it's definitely,
Yeah.
Harbaugh's a good coach. He's been a winning coach, but he's not necessarily coming into the best situation. They've got a franchise quarterback, which is a great thing, but they need to, fill some holes in the team, and they have no money to do it. So, gonna be interesting.
It will be.
So, yeah, like we mentioned, a whole lot of coaching changes and a whole lot of things that are probably going to affect how teams look next year. Um,
Absolutely.
we'll come back soon and do the NFC. Anything else you want to talk about, Drew?
I don't think so.
All right, cool.
I
Well,
think that I'm excited for the next few weeks of like 6 weeks or so. We got the combine, we've got free agency, we've got our team meeting, we've got
2 days.
league meeting, I should say. We've got our draft coming up. It's not a few weeks away, but the draft is coming up, and you got to start preparing for that. Like there's no off season in Dynasty.
Honestly, like this is the fun part of one of the funnest parts of Dynasty for me. Like this is the season that's different than redraft. Once we get past our rookie draft in late May, then you kind of get a little bit of downtime with not a whole
Yeah,
lot going on until the season starts from late May until August. But that gives us time to make trades and get ready. But this is the fun part of
yeah,
Dynasty to me. All right,
I
bud.
agree. All right.
Well, cheers, man.
Cheers, dude. To another episode.
Yeah, buddy. See you soon. Bye.
See ya.